Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio, episode number 303. So, 301, we talked about the obesity and cancer research campaign that focused on the obesity epidemic we're in and the links to cancer. We've seen billboards all over the UK. We've seen arguments online. There's been a lot of conversation, and me and Tom talked about our perspective on the campaign because everyone's talking about it. We wanted to almost wade in and have our opinion. Anyway, an awesome thing has happened. Cancer Research UK, we got linked together. There was a positive conversation that's had. Cancer Research said, hey, can we come onto the show? Can we have a chat? Can we kind of explore this conversation? Because I genuinely feel we are just looking at the highlights of this campaign. We're seeing the billboard, we're seeing a couple of comments and arguments, and we're wading in. What are the facts? What's trying to be achieved? What's trying to be said? What is the data behind the campaign? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Emma Shields from Cancer Research UK, hello.
Hello. Thank you for having us on the show.
Well, thank you for getting in touch. This is really cool because I think for me, there's not enough of the fitness industry making themselves aware of the wider problems and where these actual problems stem from in the kind of, the 90% of the population that is genuinely struggling with their health. I think we can live in a bit of a bubble sometimes. And, I know a lot about nutrition. A lot of the people that listen to this show know a lot about nutrition, and it kind of almost seems straightforward, but there's a lot of people struggling with nutrition and exercise and everything. So we kind of need to almost start from the top. If you can just firstly tell me and the audience your kind of involvement in cancer research and the campaign, that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work in the health information team at Cancer Research UK, and I look after the evidence base around obesity and cancer. So my team, we look after all areas of prevention, but I specifically look after obesity. So that's my involvement in the campaign, is that I look after the claims and the facts and the evidence behind the campaign. So the reason we're running this campaign is because we know that obesity is a cause of cancer, but only 15% of people in the UK know this. So first and foremost, we want to change that. We want more people to know about this fact. But the reason why we want to raise awareness is because we know that it's really hard to keep a healthy weight in the world that we live in. It doesn't make it easy. That's why the stats are the way they are. Around 6 in 10 adults in the UK are overweight or obese. So that's a reflection of the environment that we live in. So on the back of this campaign, we also wanted to support the work that we're doing in the policy space to try and lobby the government and the food industry to make changes so that it's easier for everyone to keep a healthy weight.
So in terms of the research, talk to me a little bit more about the research, because people kind of sort of argued that, well, it's just correlative data, like it's nothing to go off. But really, if we don't start acting on these assumptions and we wait for such concrete data, it kind of feels like it's going to be a little bit too late.
The correlation between obesity and cancer, it began emerging back in the 1970s. So we first started to see this link emerge. Obviously, back then, correlation didn't equal causation. Obviously, scientists at the time thought it was interesting, but we needed a lot more research to work out what was going on. Since that time, fast forward to 2018, we now have data from thousands of studies involving millions of people to show that obesity is a cause of 13 different types of cancer. So we can be confident in this link because we can confidently rule out other things that could explain it. So, good quality studies take into account things like diet and exercise, which can impact weight. They take that into account. We can see lots of consistency across a wide range of studies, and the more consistent results are, the more confident you can be. We can see what's called a dose-response relationship, so we know that the more weight gained, the higher the risk. And we also have really good explanations for how obesity could cause cancer. So these are the type of criteria that we use to assess whether or not something is causal. And for obesity, we can tick all those boxes. Now, in saying that, for an individual person, things that can cause cancer, whether that's smoking or obesity or alcohol or even the sun, they increase that person's risk of developing cancer, but they don't mean that you'll definitely develop cancer. So we know that, there are smokers who don't develop cancer and there are non-smokers who do. But if you smoke, you are greatly increasing your risk of cancer. So yeah, absolutely no one should feel blamed for developing cancer. And in most cases, we can't know what has caused an individual person's cancer. But we do know there are things that we can do to stack the odds in our favour when it comes to cancer. And at a population level, these causes of cancer, so whether that's smoking or obesity or alcohol, they cause more people in the population to develop cancer. But we can't predict who those people would be. So that is, I guess, why we're going out there with, it is bold, clear message. When we were developing the campaign, we talked to lots of different people, people who had been affected by cancer, people from different weights, and the overwhelming thing that we heard was that we have a duty to tell people about this fact. And so, that's why we're doing this, to raise awareness. But secondary to that, we're not just putting this information out there alone. We are also trying to do more to support people to keep a healthy weight as well.
So, talking about support, when me and Tom discussed the show initially on 301, we sort of said, for me, I see this campaign as almost like a punch between the eyes. It's like, come on, people, let's wake up, let's listen. There's some horrible and harsh facts here, but we can't deny them. What's happening off the back of this campaign with information, support, guidance? So people can almost like take an active interest in saying, actually, I'm quite overweight. Here's what I'm going to do about it. Cancer research, can you help me? What's happening off the back of it in terms of initiations, guidances, programs, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So for some people, awareness might trigger behaviour change. It's fair to say that for a lot of people it won't, though. We know when something like weight, there are so many factors that go into to people's weight, and often health is not the first thing that people are thinking about. There are lots of other issues, so we know that awareness alone probably isn't enough to change most people's behaviour. And as I said earlier, we know that the world we live in makes it really hard to keep a healthy weight. The unhealthy choice is the easy choice currently. So we want to do more to support, higher level work that will create an environment for us all that will make it easier to keep a healthy weight. Obviously, individual changes are important too, so people can obviously make changes in their own personal life to keep a healthy weight or to lose weight, but there are lots of things outside of our individual control. We can't, we can do things like trying to get to 10,000 steps every day, or taking the stairs instead of the lift, or thinking about our drinks and going for the non-sugary ones, but we can't do things like sort the price of food, or look at how many ads we're bombarded with. There's lots of other factors driving this, and there's lots of things that are out of our control. So we're trying to recognise that and not place blame on individuals and not make anyone feel bad for their weight, but to try and say, hey, this is everyone's issue. This is the world that we live in that is causing this. Let's make changes so it's easier for us all to keep a healthy weight.
So when the campaign went out, one of the biggest backlashes was kind of this sort of fat shaming accusation. And from my perspective, there was I'm not going to say famous, probably more famous now, comedian that kind of jumped on this, and the comments started to fly around. I loved how you guys handled the information and really stuck by your guns and was like, no, come on, they're facts. What was kind of explain your reaction to the fat shaming comments? Because in my line of work, being a coach that helps transform lives, any kind of straight up rejection of facts and shifting the blame is quite often a mental, emotional belief system issue with that individual, and they're trying to shift blame away from themselves and saying, oh, you can't say that, you can't do this. Well, actually, we can. These are the facts, and we're going to stand by them.
Yeah, I mean, this campaign isn't directed at any individual. You know, we want to raise awareness everywhere. This campaign is literally everywhere, so we're not trying to direct it at any one individual. Obviously, individual people are seeing it and have their own reactions to it. And obviously, we are really sorry if we've caused any distress to anyone. But yeah, this is a fact that we want to get out there. And as I said, when we were developing this campaign, we talked to lots of people, including people who were overweight, and the overwhelming message from these people was, you have a duty to tell people about this. I didn't know this. This is really shocking. And of course, for some people, you know, it is a shocking message, but it is a message that needs to get out there as well. And you know, we see that we have the duty to tell people about this. But as I said, we're not just telling people about this, and we're not trying to place blame on individuals alone, because we recognise that this environment that we live in makes it really hard to keep a healthy weight, and that's why the stats are the way they are. That's why you know, most people find it hard to keep a healthy weight because of the world that we live in. So we know that we need to do more to support people to keep a healthy weight, and where we see the biggest value is at the government and the food industry level, and pushing them to make changes alongside supporting individuals, because yeah, of course, individual changes are important too.
When we look at top level initiatives like what the government are doing to promote these kind of messages, what major charities are doing, and big private organisations, do you find that there is friction or a lot of walls or red tape when you're discussing this kind of stuff at like a government and policy level? Because you hear of some mad stories of, like, you know, sugar tax should be greater and lots of different things should happen in the industry, but actually big pharma and, you know, companies with a lot of money are actually blocking these things from happening. Is this a thing, or is it just that, you know, there's a lot of cultural socio-economic issues that we have to kind of discuss and work around? There's lots of habitual industry things happening that we have to go around. Are there problems there? Like, are some of these kind of stories true to a degree?
I mean, I think it comes down to the fact that obesity is a very, very complex issue. There is no one single cause of obesity, and there is no one single solution of obesity. So we need action at all levels, right from, you know, individual changes right through to these big societal level changes as well. So, you know, different people have different opinions about exactly what those changes should be, and more often than not, we probably need a little bit of everything. You know, we need people to take responsibility and make changes themselves, but then we also know that we need, you know, support from health professionals, but we also need the food industry to reduce the sugar and fat and salt in their foods. We need the government to set restrictions on junk food marketing to children. So we know that, you know, children are currently being bombarded with junk food marketing, and junk food marketing works. That's why they spend billions of dollars on it every year. And so we need a little bit of action from all areas. And because it is such a complex issue, I think that's why it's proving to be so difficult to tackle.
I think it's a hard conversation, and I've had plenty of discussions with professionals online. And you literally roll the hand grenade under the table and say, what's the solution to obesity? And everyone's got their opinion in their pocket, in their little kind of niche that they're in. Me, it might be more nutrition related. We've got an interview coming up on the show with Dr. Carl Brandt, who is currently working with the NHS in West London in Yorkshire on some interventions. And he was like, do you know what? If we can just move a lot more, it would solve a lot of problems because of the physiological benefits and just the overall calorie burn. Like, we're just not moving a lot anymore. So it is a very, very hard topic because we've got societal issues. We've got people that lack self-confidence and lack self-belief. We've got a nutrition education thing. We've got a sedentary lifestyle habit. And it's like when personal trainers come to me and say, Ben, like, what can we do? What's the solution? I'm like, it just takes lots of good people like you to keep doing good things with people to eventually see some change.
Yeah, exactly. I think what you said, that, you know, there is a little bit of all those things happening. You know, it does. I often find it crazy that people will argue it's either all diet or all sedentary behaviour. You know, it's a bit of both. They're all playing a role, and that's why it's so hard. And the world we live in makes it so hard to make these healthy choices. And especially with something like weight, it's not just about health. There are lots of other factors that are playing a role, and so it's really tough for lots of people, and so that's why we need action at all levels.
So with the campaign and like moving forward and all these issues that we face, is there a couple of things that you're focusing on or you want to focus on because you think it will have the greatest impact on people moving forward? Yeah,
so as I said, with the campaign, the main aim is to raise awareness. So we are going to be running some post evaluation surveys to see if we've achieved that aim. But then the long-term aims are to see this government action. And in particular, the key thing we're calling for at the moment is to ban junk food advertising before the 9 p.m. watershed. And that's to protect, future generations from being bombarded with junk food ads, because we know that children who are exposed to more junk food marketing are more likely to eat these unhealthy foods and therefore be more likely to be overweight or obese. And we have some restrictions in place. So currently junk food ads are banned on children's TV, but we know that children watch TV different these days. They're watching more of the sort of family viewing TV, and that's currently not under these restrictions. So we want to see this kind of loophole close and to see the junk food marketing banned before the 9 p.m. watershed. So that's our big push at the moment. But as I said, there's no one cause of obesity, and therefore there's no one solution. So we also want to see other actions too, including reducing the sugar, fat, salt in the foods that we have, and also we obviously want to monitor that sugary drinks tax and see if that's having an effect, because obviously we were really supportive of that coming in too.
Where do you think, well, from an education perspective, I think actually the one big thing that I see in my side of the fitness industry is we talk about reducing sugar and fat, and that's cool. Like, you pick up a food, knowing that it might have 200 calories less is great. But does that really solve the problem where the focus is still essentially on processed food? It's like, oh, we've changed this processed food, it's now better, but it's still not a great food. And do you think there's enough information being championed about actually stop choosing those food and start to cook with vegetables, start to have more fruit in your diet, start to look at lean protein sources?
Yeah, I mean, and that's, I guess, Cancer Research UK's diet advice, is about focusing on foods and not nutrients. And we, basically it is about encouraging, more of the plant foods that we know are higher in fibre, lower in calories, higher in nutrients, and less of, junk foods, sugary foods, and processed meat and red meat, which can tend to be higher in calories as well. So absolutely our diet advice is about focusing on foods, not nutrients, because, we know that you eat foods, you don't eat nutrients. But we also know that, the reality of the world that we live in, supermarkets aren't going away anytime soon. People are going to have to eat food, and in the time-pressured world that we live in as well. So we also want to, and some foods just that you wouldn't expect to have so much sugar or so much salt, they do. And that's, we want to try and change some of that as well, to try and make it easier for people to obviously eat more whole, fresh foods, but, people are going to be eating processed foods too, and so where possible to make those as healthier. Not healthy, but healthier.
So just to kind of start to finish up and kind of, I really want to finally just look at cancer as a on a wider scale, because I think cancer is, in society, it's a really loaded word. Like, people don't like talking about it because it brings about a lot of pain if someone knows of someone that's had cancer. But there needs to be an awareness of what we can do to prevent it from happening. Now, we all know people that were like fit and healthy and got cancer. We all know people that have been overweight and smoked and got cancer. So when you're talking about cancer and it's kind of avoiding it, really, what do you say to people? Is your message really just, look, be as healthy as you can, move, or is there some more specific things that you like to focus on?
Yeah, look, so absolutely, cancer prevention is a big area for us. But, we have to also recognise that there are no guarantees against cancer. Anyone can develop cancer, but there are things that we can do to stack the odds in our favour. So, in fact, about 4 in 10 cases of cancer are preventable each year. And that is largely through, 6 main things. Things like not smoking, keeping a healthy weight, cutting down on alcohol, keeping active, and eating a healthy diet, and staying safe in the sun. So those things can pretty much combined prevent about 4 in 10 cases of cancer in the UK every year. So I think, we really try and focus on those key things, which will have a big impact. I think cancer is often in the media, and, 1 minute we're focusing on one little aspect of diet or something else, or but actually there are about 6 key things that have been shown to reduce people's risk of cancer, and we really try and focus on that and the things that are going to have the greatest benefit. Of course, always with the caveat that there are no guarantees against cancer, and no one should feel blamed for developing cancer either. We can't know what has caused an individual person's cancer, but at a population level, we know that doing more of these things will prevent more cancers in the UK.
Yeah, it's tough. Society is always looking for a black and white answer. Do this and don't do that. And unfortunately, that's just not the case. We've got to do what we can. And I think, when we did show 301, we also talked about the government's new One Life campaign. And I think that's a phenomenal way to frame it. And I'm really glad the government almost took that step to say, hey, look, you've got one life. Like, how are you going to live it? Like, there's no guarantees. Like, we don't know what's going to happen. But, let's also look at quality of life as well. Like, we almost say, oh, when's it going to end? Well, even if you live for 50 years, make those years really high quality. Personal view, you're not going to have a high quality of life if you're obese compared to whether you're a normal weight. And that's speaking from a man who's been obese and is now a normal weight. My quality of life is vastly improved. So I also like us to come home to reality and say, what is the quality of, your everyday energy, your life, your movement, your relationships. That's more than anything what we want to be aiming for, rather than this kind of golden endpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as I said, health is often the last thing on people's mind, and especially something like cancer, which it's a disease that is mostly of older people. So most people who develop cancer are over the age of 50, and so for especially when we're younger, it can seem like something quite abstract and in the long term. So it can be really hard to be motivated to do things like keeping a healthy weight or not smoking for a cancer prevention point of view. But we might have other motivations for why we might want to do those things. And also those sorts of things like not smoking, keeping a healthy weight, being active, eating a healthy diet have so many other benefits, health-related and non-health-related as well. So, yeah, I think often, Cancer Research UK is obviously focused on cancer, but individual people, have all sorts of different motivations for why they might want to adopt some of these behaviours.
Sure. Well, it's been an interesting discussion. Thank you very, very much for coming on the show, Emma. See people can sort of direct their energy in the right way after this show. Are there any resources that you want to share? Is there anything you want to ask of the audience? I mean, on the last show that we did, I asked that people support the message, support change. We've talked about championing different ideas. If you believe in greater physical activity, go and teach that. Just inspire people to move and do cool stuff, and it's going to lead on to them picking up, better lifestyle habits, better nutrition habits. That's kind of my message. If we all talk, then we're going to make a positive movement. Is there anywhere you'd like to direct people today?
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely just encourage everyone to be part of the conversation. So we're really grateful for everyone so far who, the campaign's only 2 weeks into it. We've got about another 2 weeks to go. So we're really grateful to everyone who's participated in this conversation. If you'd like to find out more, you can go to cruk.org/obesity and cancer. And we've got lots more information, including some of the facts and evidence behind this campaign.
Awesome. Well, if you want that link and for some reason you didn't remember it because it was 15 seconds ago, then look at the show notes. You will see the link. I'm very much supporting what's happened. I think it's a good campaign. I like awareness. When I speak, when I do this podcast, when I educate, I'm quite a direct practitioner. I don't believe in tiptoeing around issues. People need to know the facts. But for me, it's the facts inspire when they are the truth, and people need to hear it as it is. So Emma, thank you very much for your time. Keep campaigning. If I can support it in any other way, then ask and I will help. I promise.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time and support.
Thank you. And for all of you guys listening, look, share this, tag someone in, retweet it, get involved in the conversation. If you've got a question about anything that we've discussed today, feel free to direct it at Cancer Research UK, reply to a tweet or something. If you think it would be interesting we've talked a little bit about over 50s today. If you've got a family member that's over 50, maybe share this show with them. They might actually not know what a podcast is, so you might have to put it on for them and leave the room while they have a little listen. I have to do that for my granddad sometimes. It's funny. But please show support for the show. If you're here and you've never listened to the show before, welcome. Go back to 301 if you want to hear the previous conversation. If you've never listened to the show before and you think it's been good, please leave us a review on iTunes. That's how the show gets found by more and more people. Otherwise, we are done. I will see you on the next show on Monday, where our show will be under 10 minutes, and then we'll be back with a guest on next Thursday. Emma, thank you again.
Thank you.
And I will see you all next week. Goodbye. Hey everyone, Coomber Radio, episode number 301.